I haven't had time to catch up with you.
It is bloody freezing.
I know.
Good evening, everyone. Before I hand over to the chair of tonight's meeting, I invite everyone here in the room. We are now live streaming. I'd like to request that all participants wait until being invited to speak by the chair. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand. Once invited to speak, please preface your contribution by stating your name. This will help the mics lock in on the primary speaker and thereby maximise the sound quality for those watching at home. If you're watching at home and wish to participate in tonight's meeting, please turn your video on. If you're just observing, please turn your video off. Unless actively speaking, all those watching the meeting via Teams. Members of the public are reminded that public participation is for questions only. Comments, suggestions or representations may be made at the discretion of the chair of the meeting. In case of fire evacuation, fire point is the marketplace. This evening there will be no fire drills. Now hand over to tonight's chair, Councillor Raby.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Monday, the 2nd of February's full council meeting. Item 1, do we have any apologies?
Councillor Jay Westbrook, Councillor Druitt, Councillor Whitlock, Councillor Crossley and Councillor Price.
Thank you very much. Item 2, any declarations of interest?
Oh,
Adrian?
yes, it's not a declaration of interest, but I want to make it absolutely clear why I leave the room when the name of a contractor comes up, who I work with very closely at Melksham Food and Winter Festival. I've been told I should have declared that as an interest. It's not a pecuniary interest. It's a business relationship that I do not want to sour by being involved in any negative discussions about a particular contractor. And if that name of that particular contractor comes out tonight, I will again remove myself.
Thank you. Thank you for explaining. Anybody else? No. Okay, thank you. So moving on to item 3, and this is to approve the minutes of the previous meeting held on January. Do we have any questions? Proposing Jack, thank you. Is all in favour? Thank you. Moving on then to item 3, which is public participation, which I will go to the room first of all, and then I think we may have somebody, even though their camera's not on online, was wishing to participate. But if I could ask you, how many of you are here for participation? Just you, Sid? Do you want to come up? I will probably suspend standing orders when we get to that part of the agenda. Thank you. So please go ahead.
My name's Susan Mortimer, resident of Melksham. In the 26-27 budget for capital investment is amount of £90,842. This, I presume, is for the various ongoing costs have taken on Bluepool from Wiltshire Council. This works out at around £15 on the residents' annual council tax bill. Are residents going to have to pay this amount every year until the Bluepool project is started? And what is the project for, and when is it likely to start?
Thank you. So we'll come back to you on that. Thank you very much.
I did think the idea of having your questions in on a Friday so you could get the answers at the meeting.
I can give you some of the answers around it if that helps. So in terms of the Bluepool site, as we all know it, there is no long-term plans currently committed to happening there. There are initial conversations regarding that. What we are looking at doing in the short term is to move from the Bower Hill site into the Bluepool for amenities and open spaces team, so at least the site is going to be used, and therefore that will save on the cost that it's currently costing the council to run the depot. Now, I've got final information and meetings that I'm having on Wednesday to see if I can put a project plan together to possibly try and be out there by the 31st of March. But there needs to be a bit of a plan put together. The final details regarding the finance, I will absolutely get the RFO to come back to you on that. We put some money in the budget, so if the council decided to move forward with the Bluepool, we'll at least have some funds to enable us to do so. What will potentially happen if those funds aren't spent is they will go into earmark reserves for that project going forward.
Right, okay.
I'll get an email trail sent to you.
Right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think we had somebody who had popped a message in the chat asking if they could partake in public participation, but they haven't switched their camera on. If not, then I'm going to move on to the next agenda item, because I'm presuming it was Rick Brightwell. Okay, in that case, I'm going to move on then to item 5, which is 31 Marketplace, and this is a verbal update on the situation with the roof, etc. So Hayley, if I can hand over to you.
Yep, so if I can give you a verbal update, we have did some work last year on the Marketplace roof to be fixed. The work wasn't completed appropriately, and where we had the heavy rainfall about 10 days ago, we had severe flooding that came into 31A Marketplace, flooded the downstairs and the toilets where the community use room would be used. And also we have found that it's also flooded into the plasterboard in the Marketplace toilets as well. So as part of us being a landlord, we had some emergency work that we needed to secure and get done as soon as possible to ensure our tenants were safe. That work started. We had some quotes come in, and as per our financial regulations, that was information was shared with the 4 chairs, and the 4 chairs agreed for that work to start. That work has started. We're estimating that that work will probably be finished on Wednesday. As part of that work, there was some extra works that needed to happen that you all made a commitment for anyway, which was to get rid of the damp that was within the stairs, get it replastered and get it painted. So we've kind of done all of that work in one. What we have been doing is having conversations with the contractor, the third-party contractor that we use regarding we're not happy with the standard of the works. We're currently engaged our insurers, and the company are on standby to engage theirs as well. There's 2 pieces of work going on. One is our complaint to the third-party contractor, and that contractor has also taken out a third-party complaint because they were procured that work to a local trader as well. So I would say the work's been done well. The trader has done its time. The public toilets, when they've been closed, we've allowed members of the public to come in here. But the work needed to be cured and needed to be done.
I will open up for any questions from councillors in the room. Adrian?
Sorry, not in relation to what you've just said. Are we having questions from councillors?
I'm quite happy to, yeah.
It's not on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda, but it's.
Is it in relation or is it related to something else?
Relates to
Okay.
TV.
Can we include it with an agenda item?
You can do, as long as, yeah, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. I mean, I've just checked, actually, it's on the agenda. I don't know why it's not on the agenda. It's a standing thing.
This is an extraordinary meeting, and that we don't put the usual things that go on the full council onto an extraordinary
That's
meeting.
absolutely fine, but this is totally relates to CCTV.
That's fine.
I understand, it doesn't go on as an agenda
No,
item.
It's fine. I will speak at the appropriate time.
Thank you. Any other questions then on 31 Marketplace? No?
Sorry, I thought that in the agenda it said there was going to be a verbal update and then there was a discussion. You were looking for next steps. Was that right? Did I get that wrong?
It stated approval if required or something.
Yeah.
For decision as required.
Yeah, it's just that because I thought we were, as we said in discussions previously, it's for urgent items only, but this is just not an urgent item, is it? And then there's no decisions to be made on it.
No, in terms of an urgent item, it's just so council are informed of what is going on.
Oh, right. So,
with the Marketplace, because it wouldn't have been budgeted for.
okay, but no decision required. Okay. I was expecting a decision to come out of it.
No, just
It's all right.
at the time the agenda was drafted, Hayley didn't have all the information, so it was I considered it an urgent item at that time because I thought you'd all want to know.
Okay. But there are no decisions required.
Okay, are we happy to move on then? Okay, in which case I'm going to take item 5, which is CCTV. I think, Adrian, did you want to start with your question first of all, then?
Yeah, because it does very much relate to, although it doesn't relate to, the tragedy that happened, it does relate to So I'm actually was looking at the full council meeting of Monday, the 29th of April 2024. It's evident that the resolution did not comply with financial regulations. So what I'm asking for is how can financial regulations be strengthened to ensure the major infrastructure projects cannot proceed without a formal sign-off from the clerk, CEO or responsible financial officer? At the time this project was proposed and seconded, neither of these posts were filled and no financial advice or guidance sought by either the proposer or the seconder. I think it's a very serious failing of the council's duty to it, but it was about 2 years ago now. In light of this, how will the CEO ensure that any future projects which alter or impact the town's infrastructure cannot go ahead without appropriate financial oversight and approval from either the CEO or the RFO? Now, I'm not asking for an answer tonight. I know you had a copy of it on Friday, but I'm just very concerned that on Monday, the 29th of April, financial regs were not followed in the procuring of the CCTV. That's a very serious statement, and something which really the town council needs to address, although it was nearly 2 years ago. Thank you.
I can. Councillor Orford first.
Sorry, go on.
Go on.
Well, only to say, I agree completely. I do, and I know I've been banging on about this loads, and I was cross about it at the time, and I'm still cross. But I think Councillor Westbrook has comes very close to exactly what was said at the time by some of us, by me. Not I want to go by that, but it was a mess. It should never have gone down that road, and I think it is something that needs to be sharpened up. We cannot have a situation like that again, where huge areas of expenditure and contracts being agreed ad hoc at full council. It should always go through the clerk. It's the clerk, that's the clerk's job. And then, you know, I think a motion is fair to have a motion that says go away and do a piece of work, or, you know, if you've got time to do a piece of work, whatever. But have a motion instructing you to do something in that way. It's just madness. But anyway, yeah, okay. It's not a question, sorry. Just chipping in and back in.
Thanks, Paul.
No, absolutely bang on. I mean, yeah. Amy?
I was just going to say, you know how I feel about following your financial regs and your procurement of tender. We've got a new RFO who's actually going on the local council's procurement and with tender course as well. In terms of, I think, the situation that you're talking to, maybe as a council, you know, I can go away and come back to you on what you're going to consider if for any circumstances you are finding yourself in any, hopefully not, but without a clerk or any senior member that can assist you, because that's under this circumstances where you were vulnerable, either not having the assistance, not seeking the advice, or not following process. So I can go away and come back to you on that. But in terms of your financial regulations, they're in place and robust enough. They've gone by them, you know, by the NALC model guidelines. We are looking at them currently to make sure that they're in line with your standing orders to bring them back to you at the next council meeting. The reality is it's down. We need, well, officers are going to be strong with councillors to say this is the process and this is what needs to be done.
Thank you very much. I just had to bring it up because it is something which really upsets me about this incident. And it's nothing to do with the contractor who was given the job. That person has nothing to do with this. But it's wrong. It's wrong that my financial regs were not followed. But anyway, let's move on to the important part.
Sorry, just the motion was on the 11th of March. I think the agenda was published 11th of March.
Was it? I've got it on 29th of April.
I think that's the minutes, but it was approved. But yeah,
Yeah.
meeting was on the
Sorry.
18th of
I'm
March.
sure we know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I just went back and double checked it.
Can I request next then? I know we've had some questions from Councillor Jay Westbrook. Can we cover those off? And then what I want to do is go back to the CCTV working group, obviously, because you guys have sat and discussed this document. So we can handle that part first, and I'll come to the group.
That's fine. So I'll go through Councillor Westbrook's questions, and some of it will link to some of the actions from the CCTV working group anyway. So one of those was, have we received written authorisation from the camera in place on the lighting columns for the church and the private buildings? So for members of the public, for any CCTV cameras that need to be situated on lamp post columns or anywhere, we have to get written permission either from the private landlord, or it can possibly be Atkins, the contractor. We are trying to figure out what has happened historically. What we do know is one of the actions that we have is to contact Atkins and find out if they've ever given us permissions or where we are to date. Now, an email was sent after the CCTV working group. We haven't had a response. The call was also put in today. The person that I need to speak to wasn't present, so that call will be made again tomorrow. Are all formal agreements as referenced in the review documented, signed and stored in council records? Again, we are going through that in full detail to make sure that we have got everything we possibly need. So I will come back to council meeting on that. Has a full data protection impact assessment happened previously and been completed on the CCTV? Again, we can't tell you what's happening. We're trying to contact Atkins. If it hasn't been done, it will be done to go forward. Have any data breaches occurred due to missing footage, audio recordings without notice, or unlicensed frequency use being formally reported and resolved? So as it was highlighted from the report, there was some audio. So we have, as Melksham Town Council, reported ourselves to Ofcom, so they are fully aware of the situation that we were, the integrated services highlighted to us, which again was an action, the working group. Who is accountable for ensuring future CCTV security projects are compliant, technically sound and independently verified before approval? Well, that decision is about long term what the council wants to do in terms of, are we going to be using a third party to work with them in terms of any accountability or responsibility on top of any internal officer that will do their roles and responsibilities? How will we ensure that all major projects and infrastructure projects, regardless of cost, receive rigorous oversight and professional scrutiny and proper sign off? So I think some of that links into Councillor Westbrook on what you've said regarding procurement. I think in terms of what this whole process has taught, hopefully, the council, is when we've got experts outside of the council, we need to hear them and listen to them and seek their advice and take their advice to get it right, because we're not all experts in everything. Or we've got some experts in terms of councillors, but that's what we need to be doing more of, is using third parties so we can get it right. I have some questions that have come from Cheryl's family. So, will the council guarantee that details of remedial work, once a company is appointed, will be made public? Absolutely, it will go to the correct council meeting, so all of that will be completely updated. How will the council ensure residents can verify that every recommendation in the report has been completed? Again, what we will start to do is do updates from that in the appropriate council meeting. So what's happened? What have we done? And why has it happened? Will there be a public progress update or an audit trail residents can track? So one of the things that needs to happen is we now have just, I don't know, again, haven't been here, so I can't say we've had them in the past. Our first service has been done on all the CCTV cameras. All of that information, if it's not, will be public. So councillors will be able to see it in public. How will the council ensure tender contracts are fully checked line by line so we know exactly what we're paying for? Again, that will be through public. If it meets the threshold of our financial regulations, through our tenders and procurements, but most of the information regarding what we're buying and why we're buying it should go through council unless it's delegated authority to the clerk. And what safeguards will be put in place to prevent the council from, again, purchasing a system that does not match what is specified? Again, it's honestly using expert advice regarding this and ensure that we can get it right. And I've said before, it's not just about getting it right when you do the work, it's about getting it right about how you're going to maintain it going forward and having that ongoing fluid service with ongoing reviews. And that's just not CCTV, that could be any projects that you do to make sure that it's going to be right. Will an independent technical verification be required both before and after installation? So any changes that happen, that information will be available to start off with because it will be procured, or we will get quotes, and afterwards we will obviously make sure that that work has been done and is signed off. And again, that will go into a public report.
Thank you very
You're
much. Amy.
welcome.
Thank you for that. Going to pass across to our CCTV working group.
I think, I mean, like Hayley covered 99.9% of it, to be fair. So I'm going to take it on the assumption that everybody has read the report. Did you want to go through a little breakdown of what was in it at all? Does anyone need that?
You're happy with what's contained in it? Reece?
So as Hayley has stated, you know, out of our talks, we've always said now, you know, as we need to fix it, but we shouldn't be jumping from frying pan into the fire. We need to make sure that when we are fixing it, it is the correct fixtures that are in place. So we have obviously for procurement regulations that obviously we do go out to quotes for the installation of the SD card. Have asked, Dave has also said that he's going to look at where the cameras are placed, wasn't it? And make sure that the amount of cameras that we have are the correct amount, because there was talked about that one or two of them might have been interfering with each other. So we just want to make sure that that doesn't happen again. Obviously, one of the big issues that did come out is the fact that the broadband, sorry, I'm losing my voice to talk, and the broadband that is used currently is just not strong enough, and that's part what's actually causing the outages. It's currently on a 5 gigahertz, is that correct?
It's just daisy chained on what?
Whatever's currently.
2.4?
It's not broadband, it's.
Yeah, it's just frequency.
Well,
Yes,
well,
we're going to go up 60.
Thank you. So yeah, so that does need to be rectified. So one of the ways that obviously we have talked about, and I think we mentioned it in a previous meeting, is SD cards to be inserted in all cameras, so that if there were to be any future outages, downloads onto the SD card to then re-upload itself. Now we are looking at possible risks that could come with that, such as if it's over a weekend and how long obviously that, you know, it can be without being checked. So for any reason we're closed for 4 days and there's an outage all through that week. So there are things that we do want to check about and discuss before we do obviously implement these and make sure that we are getting the right SD cards for it. But obviously the detail in the report was really good, so we do appreciate that. Thank you. I don't think I've got anything else to add. Reece, did you have anything else that I missed?
No, that's it. We've covered a number of points. I think just a little bit of clarity. Just the system that was delivered was as specified. There's a question over the design of the original system, but the technology used at the time was appropriate.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Last question. When you say the design of the original system, which system? Because these systems seem to be going back quite a long time, don't they?
So we've had, as far as I'm aware, there was an original system and then there was an upgrade to it. But the at the relevant points, the equipment that was utilised was the appropriate equipment at that time. Obviously, there is much better equipment now, and if we were going to put a system in now, it would be very, very different. And the backbone, and that's what we're looking to upgrade to. But at the point of purchase, the equipment. So there was
the right equipment.
yeah, it was
Which purchase?
the original and the upgrade.
When was the original though? Do we have a date on that?
I can get you.
Because in one of your reports, you said the one of your reports on this, a meeting or so back, you said the system had been installed over about 10 years, was it?
10 years.
About 2010, 2012, you said. So was it that system, which was the original one, which was okay at the time, but obviously hasn't kept up with time? And then the upgrade, which was subsequently added on, when was that added on?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
It's never worked since September 24, has it? Not properly. We've always had outages and problems with a lack of capacity in the network.
It's not a capacity issue. It's the system works. It's not as good as it should be.
Great, I'm going to suspend standing orders because I'm going to bring in our expert in the room who created.
Yeah.
Because actually there were some points around how these systems work, how 5 gigahertz works compared to 60, etc. So I think
I remember all of that,
useful.
that stuff. I'm just was
No,
curious
but
about when.
talk about the two different systems, so 10 years prior and then this one, because we did speak in quite some depth about this last time. So would you mind just giving us a quick synopsis of?
We had an original downlight system, original 60 PV system. And that was clearly upgraded to be an IP system to give you better resolution and more capability, more cameras. The wireless infrastructure that's being used across the town to transmit camera images across the town is running at a frequency of 5 gigahertz, which is a license-free, commonly used frequency. As time has gone on, 5 gigahertz has got more and more used for Wi-Fi and various other services as such, including weather radar, which will knock it out straight away should a transmission be made. And because of the noise and the extra environmental effects of license-free frequencies being used, that is interfering with your system. And therefore, as a company, we would recommend now use gigahertz links, because those links are not license-free and they're set well away from license-free interference. And therefore, that will give you a larger backbone for additional data being transmitted across the network, which means you can run the cameras at full resolution and full frame rates, because at the moment they're running at a lower frame rate and a lower resolution than they can achieve because of the backbone and because of the frequencies and the fact they keep dropping out. And secondly, it gives you a broader infrastructure for future expansion should you want to put anything else on that network. Some of the areas at which you're getting interference is where the transmitters and receivers for these cameras are located, and they're located extremely close to one another. And realistically, there's a set distance that these devices should be separated. So on a column, you may have a column mid-circuit with a camera on it, and you would have a receiver on that column and a transmitter to the next camera. So they're daisy-chained as such down the high street. Your problem arises is when one of those links drops out, everything afterwards disappears. And therefore, everything is flowing through that initial link, set of links. So the moment you start getting interference, you lose either data or packets of data, or possibly the whole camera, multiple cameras down the line, if you like, really. So the license exempt 5 gigahertz networking is used around town centres, and we use it as well. However, because of the noise and the amount of Wi-Fi now and other interference, it's becoming extremely difficult to maintain camera images, which is where you get to the edge recording with memory cards being put into the camera, so that if you do get a dropout, you've got local recording configured for 1, 2, 3 days, depending on the setup of the camera. So part of your issue, as I explained before, is more around the setup and configuration of the network and the configuration of those wireless links, which is where your issues are arising of camera dropouts, realistically.
Okay, so the 5 gigahertz network that we had, how long has that been inadequate to run the kind of system we have, 70-odd camera system in a town centre? That's not just happened overnight, has it? That's been an issue for a while.
I would say it's inadequate, if I'm in a professional term. It could be used anywhere and still maintain to be a good system.
It's not resilient enough for us.
It's not, you would argue today, it's not necessarily, we would argue as a company, it's not really now resilient enough against interference because it's license free.
So how long has this lack of resilience existed within the network that we've been relying on, this 5G network? Because it's not just happened overnight, has it?
5 gigahertz has been used for probably 10, 12 years at least.
Yeah, so what
So 60 gigs license exempt, we started installing around 2 years ago.
okay, so this problem has existed for what, at least 2 years?
Oh, plus really.
Okay,
Plus
so the problem
is the resolve of it, which is the challenge as such. Because
yeah,
you don't know where the interference is coming from. So you can't just say, oh, build logs, shut that down because that's interfering with the town centre CCTV. because we don't.
No, you don't have the license.
Have no
No
identity.
control over it. But the problem, the lack of resilience within the 5 gigahertz network has existed for 2, 3, 4 years plus.
Well, ever since it's been.
Ever since. It's pre-licensed,
Yeah.
but it is over time become even more, problematic because more devices are obviously joining the network and using that frequency, which is where our system falls down. But that lack of resilience within our network has been an issue for some time. So we just bolted on a load of extra cameras, and the system wasn't up to carrying them really in a sufficiently resilient and trustworthy way. Is that right?
If one wanted to take that view, you could say that. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to be
Diplomatic.
because I think, there's nothing wrong with 5 gigahertz. There's settings on the 5 gigahertz networks where it can change channels if it sees interference and keep trying to find a clear channel within the 5 gigahertz range. But it may work one day and be fine for 6 months, and then all of a sudden you get interference for a week and then it goes again. The problem is you don't know where that interference is coming from.
Yeah.
This is the difficulty. And what we've noticed in town centres is it's just got noisier, and therefore we run the 60 gigahertz links to overcome that. If you were to say, well, was there that much interference 2 years ago? Probably not quite as much, but the interference would have been there and the capability of it to be there would have been the case. Normally, you probably action a survey of the town centre to check and see what the environment is like before putting it in, because you can try and be proactive about these things in advance to putting 5 gigahertz.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we always suggest do a survey first at 5 gigahertz.
Yeah.
To make sure that you have, because if you see lots of interference, you can immediately realise that you're likely to have problems with your transmission system.
Okay. Right. I understand.
Can I go to Gillian next then?
I think thank you. Some of my question might have been answered, but technology moves at the speed of light, as we know, very, very quickly. And if the system was upgraded 2 years ago, could we not pick that up? Would there have not been audits in place to check the capability on a regular basis of what's going on over the last 2 years? And if there wasn't, will there be audits going forward to check the capability going forward?
Let's Dave then on this one.
Just a question, sorry, Richard. The 60 gigahertz, was that an option when we had our CCTV installed? Was that available at that time?
It was, yeah.
Okay.
And in terms of the audits, Dave, could you explain because obviously you've been checking, we have a check sheet, I think, don't we now, for the cameras? Just an answer to Gillian's question about how going forward, we're going to be checking.
Yeah, so I daily check every single camera. If it's currently running or if it's currently down, I also log when it was last recorded as well. That's all around 85 cameras.
How many logs do we need to get before we start reporting and flagging a problem and saying, hey, something's not working?
Currently, we don't have the infrastructure in place to have someone fix it. But once we do, and we have a new contractor in place, we will flag them up as soon as there are issues that are causing any loss of data.
Can I just go to the rest of the
Yeah,
Phil,
okay.
been in once already. Does anybody else before I go back to Phil have anything to say?
Yeah, very quickly. One of the things that we discussed about the procurement process is actually looking for someone who can give us that support, that ongoing support. So when issues like this are flagged up, we've got someone to call on who we can say, actually, we need you to come in and fix this. We need to find out what's going on. And so we can do that. So that is one of the things that we have discussed in our CCTV working groups.
If anybody else doesn't have anything, I will go back to Phil.
Yeah, it was just to come back on Gillian's point. You were saying about, did we not have an audit, whatever, 2 years ago when we approved the new upgrade? Well, we didn't, in part because rather than the proper officer going away and producing a report on what needed to be done, which would have included all that because she'd have engaged professionals, what we had was a motion coming to council saying, look, let's spend 30 grand on a bunch of cameras. So there was no option on the table to have it done in that way and therefore get that survey done and establish what the failings and what the inadequacies within our system were. That wasn't done because it wasn't included as part of the procurement because it was procured inappropriately.
Charlie, then I've got Adrienne.
Yeah, just to quickly come in on that, because I completely agree it should have been done at the time.
Yeah.
Who would we have expected to do that though? Would we have needed a third party to do that, or would it have been the installers of the CCTV at the time in 2024?
Well, we didn't know we needed doing. It needed doing because it came forward as a council motion, a motion from a councillor, rather than the officers going away.
No, I
looking
agree.
into an
No,
issue. So
I'm not saying it didn't need doing. I'm agreeing with you. It should have been done.
Mm.
What I'm asking is who should have done that? Should we have?
a decision that you
should we
made,
have had-
sending a report from the officer telling us what's the
Well,
right
let me
course
take
of
a
action.
second. I was asking was
Yeah.
whether or not that should have gone out to a third party contractor to do an
Yeah.
independent report, or whether it should have been the people who installed the CCTV, whether they should have done one first before the installation.
Fair
yeah.
question.
Or if due diligence was done, they should have had a maintenance contract in place from day one, or even at the upgrade.
Did you want to come in? Then I've got Adrienne waiting as well. Adrienne, go to you, please.
Yeah, I mean, this is where a lot of this is going to fall down, isn't it? Because there were no officers, there was no responsible officer, there was no RFO in place at that time and hadn't been for about a year. And therefore, a major piece of infrastructure should not have come forward, because it should have come forward with 3 quotes and 3 bits of works with 3 contractors actually bidding to do that work. It should have gone on Contract Finder. It came in, as far as I can see, deliberately under 30k, because 30k is where it pushes it to having to go out to Contract Finder. This was 2 years ago. I think it's something which will really affect this council moving forward, rightly so. It's not going to happen while we have our current CEO, but there was no proper officer. There was no RFO, and this was steamrolled through in a way that shouldn't have happened. And quite honestly, because it was steamrolled through on that day, it was proposed and seconded. And I think that, it was one of those things that, it's like a quick win. It's not a quick win when it's so important that you get it right. And it would have been better to have left it. Phil's going to agree with me. Phil's going to agree with me. It would have been better to actually have done it properly. There was a proper officer coming in about 5 weeks afterwards, and it could and should have been left until then. We've been left, this council now has been left to try and pull this together, pick up the pieces, try and unpick what's happened. I think we've all managed to unpick what has happened. I don't think Hayley knew anything about it dropping out until the beginning of September last year. I think that's right, and we tried to put it right immediately. Sadly, it all happened at the same time, but this should never have happened.
I think it's a lesson.
It is a huge lesson.
Lesson going forward. We need to have proper due diligence in place for these types.
And you need three quotes from people who know what they're doing. And I'm not saying that's anything to do with the contractor who got the job. That was not that company's fault. It was the fault of the proposer and seconder of that.
But I'm just going to request, because Joe, I can't hardly see you. I'm just standing orders. Can I have a thank you, all in favour? Thank you. Go on, Joe.
Thank you for suspend standing orders. On the report, it says that audio being recorded. Were the council aware that they were recording audio on cameras at any point in time, or council? And I believe there's rules around the signage that you have to have if you're recording audio and video. Can I just check? I know you said you were fortunate Ofcom. Has the audio recording now been switched off completely?
Pause it. Do you want to answer that, or would you let me? I can see Dave, sorry.
The audio is off now. I believe you finalised that. You came to.
I'm not sure myself, but if Richard's told you he's turned it off, then so be it. But
Oh, that was Richard, wasn't he? So when it was discovered, it was reported, we took steps straight away. Can't give you dates, sorry, not off the top of my head.
So
The only part that I was going to say is just to remind councillors, obviously, you do have any option if you are, and I'm not teaching anybody to exit, but if you are ever presented with a motion that you are not happy with, you do not need to vote that through as well.
Going to reinstate some orders. Thank you. Okay, so before us tonight then, we obviously discussion on next steps. Do you
So,
have
well,
a
I think-
recommendation.
I think our next steps are we have to get hold of Atkins first of all to make sure that we have on private property to make sure that we have got permissions for the cameras to be exactly where they currently are, or that's going to change the locations. One of the recommendations as well that's come through is having, and you can correct me on this, integrated services, because I want to use the right terminology, of a legitimate reason of why you have a camera in the location that you do. So that piece of work has to be done to make sure that actually we're not giving the town too many cameras or too less. The quotes have gone out for all the 3 recommendations that came in our report. So we are waiting for those quotes to come back. So until those 3 steps are done, we're not going to be in a position to advise you correctly. So officers are working on those already. I think it's going to be at least 2 or 3 weeks for that piece of work to be done. And we may need to take some advice regarding where the cameras are currently. And that may be some advice from a third party, or it may be some advice from police in terms of where they believe the camera should be for any instances that they've had going on in the town as well.
Okay, so I will take it then that the support of council is to obviously follow through with the recommendations and the report, go out for these 3 quotations. And as we say, it's a matter of urgency, but with focus on getting the job completely correct. Gillian and then Lise.
All those quotations include maintenance agreements to make sure that they are looked after.
So I think you've got 2 different pieces of work. So you've got one initial piece of work, which is about the initial extra cameras, upgrading them, getting the cars. That's one piece. The next piece is absolutely that. We need to be taking some advice on what it looks like going forward in terms of maintenance. You're going to, from my point of view, and Dave, you can come in on this. We've got 2 things going on. We've got one is, what does that external maintenance look like going forward? Cameras need services. How are we going to ensure that if one gets dropped out, somebody gets informed, and the ongoing of who can come in and fix? You need to be looking at that. Then we have some internal procedures that we need to look at in terms of that is you can't just have 1 or 2 people that can follow the process, because if somebody goes on leave, so you've got 2 different layers and they both need to align to get the best service. So we need to understand what that looks like in terms of going forward, and there will be some options for the council to consider. And we will give you all the options for you to consider.
I think it's also important to note that tying someone to a price or a quote before we know exactly what the final system will be very difficult, if not impossible. So it would have to be done separately in that sense.
Okay, Reece?
The only element we haven't, Hayley briefly touched on them, but obviously training as well. We're training more people up to be able to work on the system internally and observe it and manage it, because obviously it's a controlled system. So.
Yeah. So sorry, I'm going to stay on that integrated services this afternoon. Advised on some courses. There is no local courses there in Birmingham, but we will be looking over that over the next couple of days.
Andrew?
Thank you. So at the moment, we've got a CCTV system which is functional, but not ideal.
Yeah. Yes.
So we're now trying to scope out with external advice what the ideal system would be for Melksham if it's available and possible. So don't we, before we start requesting quotes, don't we need to get that specification presented to us and considered before we then move on to get
financial recommendations from the initial report?
Yeah.
Either way, we're going to need SD cards for the cameras, and we're going to need them to be installed, and we are going to need them to be serviced. If we actually want to go for the quotes, I think we ask for them to do per camera quotation?
We did indeed, and
so that way, if the system does change in terms of how many cameras we have, we can actually make a still an informed decision on what needs to be procured, how much it will cost exactly.
Right.
So yeah, it was something that we had discussed and thought about.
Anybody else, anything else, Phil?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about remote access, because every now and again, I do get sort of verbal reports and stuff of some people still being able to access the system remotely. And who has, have we got that nailed down in terms of remote? So no one's got remote access to the system, installer or anybody else?
No, so I can confirm when it highlighted to us that there may have been a possibility of any remote access. We called a third party in that remote access. As far as we are aware, and as far as that contractor is, it is declined. There is none. Dave does everything internally here. Is that right?
Yeah, that's not building. Sorry, the CCTV room itself. As far as I'm aware, there is no chance of outside access now.
When we do go to have assuming we do end up going to market and getting an upgrade to our system, is that something that could be just secured within it? Do you get security upgrades regarding access to cameras to sort of ensure that we control that locally rather than just having to take it on face value?
Do you want to come into this?
I mean, you might want to suspend standing orders, but obviously, I would be careful about ruling out ever having remote access, because obviously there's potentially two levels of access, and there could be an administrative access and a viewing access. So as much as we wouldn't want,
we want to control it locally though, whether someone's
we would always control it from here. However, being able to give a third party access for administrative purposes to be able to monitor the system's health and things like that, that's always something that may be of benefit to us. Obviously, if a camera goes down, being able to remotely access the system to bring it back online could be faster, more appropriate. I mean, you can have permanent monitoring, but you can also have system monitoring. And if someone can access the system to bring a camera back online, firstly, it would be cheaper because they're not actually having to come out onto site, and it will be much quicker. So it would always be controlled by a licensed authority. So like we're saying about Dave's qualified and other people being qualified to access the system, they would be licensed, recognised professionals that would have access to it, but it would be controlled from downstairs.
Yeah, that's the point I'm making. So when we have an upgrade, we can ensure that that system's in place, that we have complete control here over who gets remote access. We can have that built in. That's something we can ensure.
Suspend standing orders.
Yeah, suspend standing orders. Thank you. Please go ahead.
You have a closed VPN, so what would happen is our server would be directly connected to a client site on a VPN link, so that can't be interfered with as such. And the log on the recording NVR would normally log admin access, so you'd have traceability of anybody accessing your system, should that be the case anyway. And in terms of, as Reece has commented, remote support today is normally quite an important aspect of systems.
So control it from here.
Proactive about it, particularly on monitored systems where you haven't got an operator there all day long to identify a particular camera has gone down. So
so we can.
But again, it can be controlled by. You can control access to that.
Okay, so an upgrade allows us to control it. Sorted.
Reinstate standing orders. Thank you. Okay, anything else? Are we happy with the recommendations from CCTV working group and where we're going forwards in terms of the SD cards, camera locations, permissions, etc.? Yeah. Do we need to take a vote on that?
Take a vote on that, and then what we can do is at the next full council give an update if anything has changed between now and any of the actions and next full council meeting.
Okay. Do I have a proposer then? Thank you, Reece. Charlie, second it. All in favour? Thank you. And thank you, everybody.
Plug mine here.
Yes, I don't know which one's you.
Yes, I